Hey, blessings and welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in Romans chapter 7 and 8. Um, and I'll tell you, going through this, just like in the last 2 days, every verse I came to, I wanted to copy and paste in here so I could read it. Also give you some commentary, but um, you're going to have to do a lot of this reading on your own. And man, trust me, you probably already have. This is an incredible culmination of all the things we've been talking about in our spirit versus our flesh in this daily struggle. This is where Paul really gets deep into the teaching of this and gives us understanding of what a lot of this means. So if you find yourself confused about any of this, man, please go back and read Romans. But today, 7 verse 1, do you not know, brothers and sisters, for I am speaking to those who know the law, that the law has authority over someone only as long as that person lives. As law enforcement officers, we all understand that as long as you're living on this earth and in this country and in our jurisdictions, you will obey the laws and we will enforce them. That's our job. Um, and then Paul goes on in the next two verses to give a great example of this. He says, a woman who is married to a man is under his authority. Um, and if she goes out and is with another man, she commits adultery and therefore she is violating the law. But if her husband dies, she's free to go to another man without any violation of the law. If we are living, we're living in this world under this law. But if the law has died and Christ, when he died and was resurrected, he conquered sin and death. He conquered the law. Through that death, we are no longer under the law and free. Now we're under grace. And I love this illustration that Paul gives. And he explains it a little bit in verse 4. And then in 7:5, he says that we are under the law living in our flesh, but our fruit, as long as we're living under the law, is fruit that leads to death. If we're living under grace, we're living in freedom, and that fruit is to God because it's fruit of the Spirit. It's no longer fruit of the flesh. Fruit of the flesh is death. We've talked about fruit of the Spirit, and that's the characteristic we have, and that leads to God. It reflects God. It's the character of God. And then in 7:7, this is kind of my how I put together and how it helps me to recognize what Paul's talking about when he talks about living under the law. Um, let's say you're on patrol and you work midnight shift, and during your shift you get a burglary call at a warehouse, and you go to the warehouse and there's an open door. So you get your flashlight out and you go in and you start looking around. Everything that light touches, that light illuminates, you judge. You judge whether that's something good or it's something bad. If it's something good, you move on and you continue looking until you find something bad. And when you find something bad, you um, basically you don't convict it right there on the spot, but you do. You judge it as bad. You put handcuffs on it and you lead it away to be judged. But in the meantime, it has been judged because it was caught and found guilty. That's what the law does. The law constantly searches yours and my life for things that are bad. It judges what we do, good or bad, and the bad things are sin. And it's going to find our bad things. And those sins, those bad things are going to be judged. So what the law does is shines light in dark places, and it exposes sin. That's what the law does. It's good. The law is good because it shows us where our sin is. Once we recognize where our sin is, it's time to correct it. It's time to change the behavior. It's time to turn from bad fruit to good fruit. That's what the law does. So the law is not bad. The law is very good because if it didn't expose our sin, we would continue to live in it. But we're free from judgment now. Doesn't mean that we're not supposed to continue to live righteously. It means that we're free from the judgment of that because Christ died. He took on our flesh. The whole flesh is dead, and now we're spirit. So we need to start moving towards that spirit, living in that spirit, and put away the deeds of the flesh. And that's what Paul gets to in the rest of 7 and chapter 8. So 7:12, talking about the law, basically says if we are 99.9999% pure, but we're 0.0001% bad, the law will pick out that 0.1% and convict us, and then all of a sudden we're guilty. We're convicted, even though we may have been 99.9999% good. It only takes one. Humans aren't capable of living a life on this earth with without sin. We just can't. And Paul says, man, I don't do the things I want to do. I do the things I don't want to do. I want to follow the Spirit, but my flesh keeps leading me into sin constantly. And he tells us that that's how it's going to be until, as long as we're in this body, as long as we're in this flesh carton, this flesh, we are going to have that daily struggle. But we have got to set our minds on the things that are spiritual and try and live in the spirit and fight and battle that flesh and keep it out of our lives. Got a lot of good notes here. I'm skipping one big part about things that we learned in the police academy about being ambassadors for Christ, and it's good stuff. So if you want it, let me know, but I'm not going to touch on it. In 7:18, it says, "For I know that nothing good dwells in me. Nothing good dwells in me, because I'm flesh. I'm a carton of flesh, and I live in this fleshy body every day. Even though I want to be in the spirit, I'm still living in the flesh, so that nothing dwells in this flesh is good, except the spirit that is in me. Um, for the willing is present in me. I want to do it, but the doing of the good is not living in me." In 7:21, it says, "So I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me constantly." Like I said, I would love to have just read all of Romans to you today, but I just don't have time. I'm going to read a couple more verses and then we're going to close. 7:25 says, "Thanks be to God who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, I myself, in my mind, am a slave of God's law, but in my sinful nature, I am a slave to the law of sin." Now the good news, chapter 8, verses 1 and 2, "Therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Jesus Christ, because through Jesus Christ, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and death." And I even highlighted and bolded these next couple. "Those who live according to the flesh have their minds set on what the flesh desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their minds set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace." We got to get our minds on the Spirit, and we got to fight that flesh every day. Tomorrow we're in Romans 9, 10, and 11. In the meantime, you guys be safe.